Hello, this is Pretty Guardian, and today I'm going to be talking to you about why we stop playing games just short of beating them, or why we don't finish games, why we don't beat games, that sort of thing. What made me think about this was this morning I was logging in to play Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous, which is a really great CRPG made by Owlcat Games. But I noticed that one of the very first achievements that you get for beating the prologue of the game, only 56% of players actually had that achievement. And so I looked at some of my other games and I realized that a lot of people are not beating games. In fact, some of the games that I've played, only like 10 to 20%, sometimes even less, of people have actually beat those games. And it kind of like made me think, why is that? Why are people not finishing the games that they start? And I get it, like not every game is for everybody. It makes sense to me that not everybody who starts a game would finish it. But just taking Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous as an example, it seems a little extreme to me that like half of the people who try it drop out within the first 10 hours of the game. I also know that not every game that people play is one that you beat. For example, like Fortnite or League of Legends, those aren't necessarily games that you beat or complete or whatever. You go through the matchmaking system and you can kind of rinse and repeat gameplay forever, more or less. Especially when you combine in like different challenges, different objectives, different people you might play with, different characters that you can unlock or play with, or that sort of thing. So right away, we are kind of honing in on a certain subset of players, a certain subset of games. But I was still curious about this. So I threw this question up in Discord. I threw it up on Reddit. I just wanted to see where other people's thoughts were and where they were coming from, and just kind of understand how different mentalities consume games. One thing that was pointed out to me is that some games do get returned. So using the Pathfinder example again, a lot of people probably logged in and they played for some period of time within that first 2 hours and were like, you know what, this isn't for me, uninstall, return the game. I also know that some people just collect games. So they might have no intention of beating the game at all, but they want to own like all the games in the series. Or maybe it's a game that they've beaten in the past on like a different system or something, and now it's come to Steam and they want to like support the devs. Some people are just collectors and just buy the game to have it. I also know from personal experience, as an example here, I had bought the games Hyperdimension Neptunia. I don't know which ones, but basically it was like a trilogy of them. I got it on sale on Steam. Those sales be looking good sometimes. And when I installed and played that first one, in the very first opening area of the game, there was like this graphical glitch where none of like the textures and objects and stuff would load correctly. So I ended up uninstalling that game, and I never beat that one or any of the other games in the trilogy. Those are effectively like wasted on me at that point. And so I imagine there's also a certain amount of like technical specifications that go into whether or not people are even able to beat the games that they buy. And I don't think that's necessarily something that we can discount either. Hold up a second while I hit this iced tea right quick. Your girl's feeling parched. Also, I just had my nails done, so I was kind of trying to show those off a little bit. You know how it is. There's some comedian, I think it might be like Eliza Schlesinger or something, and she basically says like, it doesn't matter like how beat a girl looks. If she has like one feature of hers that she likes, even if it's like her elbow, she'll like walk into the room like elbows first and make sure that everybody notices. And I just thought that was like so funny and also like in a weird way true. Let's get back on topic here. So I think the top answers for like why we stop playing games is ultimately that we get bored or we lose interest, or even in some cases we get burnt out. So to address that lose interest aspect, I actually did like a little Google search and I was like, what's it called when we lose interest in something? That feels like a somewhat common human experience. We can absolutely love something, like your girl loves cake, but I'm not going to sit there and eat an entire cake to myself. I lose interest. Whether it's because the flavor, on that last bite isn't quite as poppin' as it was on that first bite, or I'm just full or whatever. This seems like a very natural thing to me. And there is a medical term for it called anhedonia. And I don't want to jump too far into the clinical aspect of it because it does relate to depression and mental illness. And I'm certainly not qualified to discuss that in a 10-minute YouTube video. I do think it's important to know that that word is out there, that this is an experience. And if you feel like you are having that sort of experience related to stress or mental illness or depression, it could be a sign for you to seek out help if that's something that you're able to do. So that's one potential reason for us to lose interest in a game. As far as like burnout or just getting bored of it, I was also kind of asking the question, why? Like, what is it about games that cause us to lose our interest or to become bored of them? At this point in my little research process that I did for this video, I was also kind of thinking, okay, well, let's go through my gaming collection and let's just see what games I've beaten versus what games I've let sit on the shelf and kind of ask myself why. And so an example of a game that I beat was Atelier Ryza, and an example of a game that I did not beat was Atelier Sophie, The Alchemist of the Mysterious Book. And this one I actually played for 15 hours before deciding to put it down and never pick it up again. And I can tell you 100% that for me, it was boredom. I felt like the pacing was just off, that nothing was really happening. You know, it's kind of problematic for a game to be 15 hours in and there's literally no sign of an overarching plot to this game. Even in Atelier Ryza, there was a sense of progression and a sense of mystery. Like there was actually some sort of overarching purpose to the story that we were watching that was not really present in Atelier Sophie at that point in the game. And that's not to say that it's a bad game. From what I hear, it's one of the most popular Atelier games. They're coming out with an Atelier Sophie too. I'm not over here trying to yuck your yum. I'm just saying that for people who say that they get bored or burnt out, that's a very relatable answer to me. So then if the issue is pacing or something else in the game like that, is this really just a symptom of bad game design? There was an article from Game Design Lounge called Why Video Games Get Boring, The Psychology of Fun. And their author suggests that making a game too repetitive can make it boring. So if you're doing the exact same things through the entire game for hours on end, gameplay will absolutely get stale. And if your gameplay loop isn't tight, it's gonna get stale really quick. I know for me personally, I have kind of mixed feelings on that one because I totally understand that you want to find ways to keep gameplay fresh and gameplay interesting throughout the entire course of the game. I personally don't like it when I'm playing a game and I get towards the last act of the game and they're suddenly introducing major new mechanics or systems that I need to learn in order to master the game. That doesn't feel good to me. I almost feel like I'm being punished as a player for reaching that stage of the game. But also switching things up, like having new zones, new enemies, new spells or abilities or things like that can also help keep things fresh. So there is definitely a need there to find ways to keep games from getting repetitive. He also flat out stated that players get bored when they're not feeling rewarded in a game, which I think is very true. So when I played Amazon New World, one of the things that I absolutely loved about the game is how everything I did felt rewarding to me. So for an example, as I'm adventuring through a zone, I'm getting experience with the weapons that I use to kill my enemies. I'm getting player experience for my character, you know, leveling from level 1 to 60, which helps me unlock new perks for my character. But I'm also getting faction reputation, local reputation for the zone that I'm in, then also a whole variety of rewards. Like, yes, you can get equipment and gold and that sort of thing, but you can also get reagents for crafting, like unlocking dungeons and other rewards. So there was a wide variety of rewards that I was getting through this leveling experience. And, you know, it probably made your girl's dopamine chemicals go bing, bing, and I was here for it. Like, you absolutely do want that game to feel rewarding as you're playing through it. So video games should feel rewarding, they should have the right pacing, and they should have a certain level of challenge. When I was doing my research, I heard somebody mention that video games at the end of the day are a type of puzzle. They're meant to be completed, but there's also a certain challenge to them. You have to figure out the right strategy, the right gameplay method, or so forth to figure out how to beat that stage or get that achievement or whatever your goal may be in the game. And in a way that kind of changed my paradigm of how I'm looking at games now. So in a way, games are meant to be completed and played, but ultimately, I also think that you're meant to have fun. If you are getting bored or whatever the case may be with your game, once you hit that point of you're not having fun anymore, I think that you as a player should feel empowered to say, okay, you know what, this game isn't for me, or this game isn't for me anymore, and to put it down and move on to the next thing that brings you joy. All that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video. In the future, I'm going to be doing a final tour of my farm and Farm Together. I have some more collabs planned, and I'm going to be covering the game Amazon New World again, just to talk about some of the updates and things that have been happening in the game. So thank you again for watching today, and until next time, this is Pretty Guardian, logging out.